So, EB, when we left for the break, we was talking about Sean Combs. What's his name? P Diddy now. I did not P Diddy. I don't know. Then I can't keep up. I'm out of time, but I'm gonna call him Sean Combs.
Right.
Um, and you were having a personal opinion on the trial, which is going to be interesting um, to hear.
Yes. First of all, disclaimer is that I am in no way endorsing. I am no way approving of or anything that have happened to any of those victims that tied in with Sean Combs. But I'm just saying, based on what I'm seeing, from the trial and the defense and the prosecutor, it's just a personal observation. I'm not a lawyer, but I do notice is that his trial is getting less and less uh, coverage, and the reason is that because it ain't that salacious trial. They have had testimonies and they have said some things that even a virgin ear would have a hard time with, But what what I've seen is that a lot of the people that have coming against him as victims, the defense has been able to show them as willing participants. So, like I said, I'm standing by and waiting to see what turns out, because how we have seen in our lifetime, lawyers able to get people that we know is dead to right is guilty, but because they that thing called reasonable doubt, it's a real thing.
Reasonable doubt.
Reasonable doubt.
So you didn't tell us. I mean, you're trying to skirt the fence. I mean, did the man do it or didn't he do it? You gonna hold out on your opinion?
I'm not saying that he did or didn't do it. All I'm saying is that how we go in the court of law. No matter what we think or what we believe, if that lawyer is able to convince a reasonable doubt to those jurors, Sean Combs will walk. So I'm not saying that I'm cheering for Sean Combs. I'm just saying to that trial is turned out to be. But then again, who are we? And let's not kid ourselves. We have seen many trials such as this, and we all sit around and say, yeah, we know what the outcome be, and we all been shook up by it. So I would say that stand by on Sean Combs, because I think that it's gonna get a whole lot more muddled in the water before that trial. They said trial's supposed to last about 3 months. They now saying that trial probably lasts 8 months. So and he's saying that the prosecutor's ready to wrap their part of the trial up. But like you say, when you out there fighting for your life, you put all the balls on the table.
Yeah, it sounds kind of mealy mouth to me. I mean, it sounds like to me you don't think you got a horse in the race. Sound like to me.
I don't have a horse
now
in
we
the
just
race.
got through talking
I
about.
don't have a family member.
We just got through talking about truth and justice. We want the truth, right?
But I'm saying, but neither one of us know what the truth is.
Well, that's what court is for. That's why you go to court, to find out what the truth is. And like you say, the prosecution has to prove his case, has to put the facts out. We're talking about facts now. To get to the truth, you need facts. Now, you got to look at what he was charged with, as you pointed out earlier. There's certain things I'm not seeing as far as the trafficking. Maybe they haven't gotten to that yet. But I don't know what. This shows you how much I follow it. It's not my
but I'm
thing.
saying, I was saying stand by is that because, we have sat and we've watched many of trials, and the ones that's more prevalent in my head, I sat there and watched that trial for Rodney King, and it came back, what? Not guilty. I watched O.J. Simpson. everybody knew all the stuff put on the table. But I'm just saying, reasonable doubt. Johnny Cochran. Hey, he was able to do his job. I mean, I can go, to many more other than that. But I'm just saying, and then you have to look at what a curve is. The same thing that happens in those local courts, it kind of mirrors back to what we just got through talking about with the Supreme Court.
Yeah, and that's what I want to say, that you brought up two cases. That was very good. Rodney King and O.J. Simpson. And I'm thinking about how the majority of black people felt on those verdicts. Obviously, the Rodney King verdicts, and we wasn't too happy on that, right? All right. Did they get to the facts? Did they deal with truth? We were hurt and disappointed. The man get, just whooped on the street like that, and it was obvious. But then you said the O.J. Simpson case. I mean, this feeling of what we call justice. Well, there was an opposite side to that. I mean, to me, it looked like, in fact, it looked like O.J. was guilty to me, but I wasn't in the courtroom, and I didn't see the facts. But they did televise it, and I followed it pretty good. And what it came down to me was police misconduct that got O.J. off more than the crime itself. Okay, that being said, all I'm saying is in the courts, that's what we're supposed to be striving for, is truth. But like anything else, like we're looking at today, courts can get corrupted.
Right.
People can be corrupted.
Right.
And so we also have that built into the system. The corruption is built in the system, but you try to write the laws in such a way that you can alleviate all the corruption in the system. We just talk about another verdict. If you think about the Tyrese Nichols case, the latest one, that verdict lately, 4 cops got off? How many cops got off there? Not guilty for the Tyrese. That was a young man in Memphis that was murdered.
I think it was 8 of them.
8 cops, not guilty. 2 of them pleaded up front. I think a couple of them pleaded up front. But I'm just saying, in the court system, justice is, it can be a little elusive depending on the situation. And as you said, the prosecutors proven their case. But that goes to bringing it back. We kind of got off a little bit off there.
No,
of Sean Combs. You're getting your mic. That's why you get your mic straightened out. You got to put the mic on. Then I'll take that. Tell me which channel you're going on, and I'll get you back on. Just having a little technical difficulties over here with EB here. But I want to say, to get back to the subject of what channel are you on, brother? 1. Yeah, you can go ahead now. It should be working.
But I just want. Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay,
I just wanted to.
Hold up. Let me get you on. When you get your mic out. All right, I'm gonna wait on you. But I do want to come back to Sean Puffy Combs, because take you down a little bit while you get that settled. So I do want to come back to Sean Combs, because that is, I know I'm indifferent on it. I follow it a little bit, but it just seems like, to me, there's I just say it like that. I'm glad I'm not a juror, because I can see how sensitive this is, especially with domestic abuse. Obviously, a man kicking a woman around and throwing around in a hotel, that speaks for itself. And then I'm sure he even apologized at one point. So that speaks for itself. But then we know how, I'm indifferent because I know how our government operates when it comes to black people. And that's where I get a little shaky. It's like, man, the charge is trafficking and all these heavy charges. I'm not sure that's so that's why we have juries, and that's why people should be honest. You have anything to add to that?
Well, just really piggyback. You know how we do. is that what you had said earlier, you're talking about the OJ and the Rodney King. In my opinion, is that OJ should thank Rodney King for him getting not guilty. The reason why I say that, you remember the jury makeup for those cops with the Rodney King, what the makeup was, and you see what the outcome was, and then you see what the makeup of the O.J. Simpson, and then you see what the outcome is. That they, just like you said, that justice is that as black people, is that we felt here's our chance to vindicate one of our own.
Okay, and for clarity, what you were saying was that the Rodney King jury was mostly white.
Yes.
And then the O.J. Simpson jury had a few black people in there, they actually was very diverse.
Yeah.
And you're saying that the Rodney King was not diverse. On them old Mississippi
Exactly.
jurors,
Exactly.
juries look like they pulled that jury out of Mississippi. Yeah, 1965, they held them for just that Rodney King.
Exactly. Yeah,
one of them people probably 80 years old up in that trial.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, but I mean, so.
But with Sean, as we're saying that with Sean Combs, like you said, it's sad. I just be honest with you, as far as what his positioning was in the world, and the opportunities that he had to from his own background, and then all the opportunity that he allowed for other young black artists for them to go and to make something good of their lives. So, it could have, well, I was getting ready to use an example, is that he could have been like a black, not a black, well, he could have been like a Barry Gordy, as far as
And it appears to me that maybe he was for the hip hop generation. That's a good comparison to me. You get what I'm saying? Sean Combs, he produced what, Biggie Smalls, right? Who else?
Junior Mafia.
Junior Mafia. That's in that. Yeah.
Well,
he has a whole list of people.
But I'm saying, but he had the opportunity to make good with what was afforded to him. He came up through the industry, but then again, like they say, power is intoxicating. And it can put people in positions to think, because just us having this conversation is that as we talk, we are able to bounce, and we bounce here, because there's so many things that always tied into it. Because when I was sitting there thinking about Sean Combs, I thought about Harvey Weinstein. You know what I'm saying? It's just so many different things that we can talk about. And like I said, we're looking forward to you all joining in these conversations, because we ain't got the pretty words, we I'm old country boy from Shreveport, Louisiana, and CC is
Mississippi, Oxford, Mississippi. I'm straight out the country. It's not, and I love coming from Mississippi. It's like the boot camp of life for me. Especially in the world we live in today. But we have different perspectives, different opinions. Okay, did you want to add any more of that before we move on to the generational?
Yeah, that's fine. I say that I was just saying the opportunity you have, because we have to go back and look, and as you can see in the background, you see all these album covers, and we talked about what Sean Combs had the opportunity to do. And then we think about these people behind us, is that how their lives were affected based on not having the opportunity to own their music. Just think about all them artists. Now we still listen to their music today. It's on commercials and the whole nine. But then again, their families are not the beneficiaries of it. So what we're saying as far as with Sean Combs, and then we transition to talking about generational wealth. I know a lot of stars from my era that, died broke. But their music is still out here in these streets, because we think about it, and I'm gonna pass it over to Cece, is that think about what Ice Cube did. You think about that these people came to these young black men and threw a 6-digit figure in front of them, and that's what they gravitated to. But Ice Cube told him, "No, I'm not signing anything. I need my lawyer to look at it." But then again, how we was taken advantage of, because the fact is that we didn't have those resources available to us, and then to have that presented to you, yeah, you wouldn't think twice about signing. But CC, he's more of a music connoisseur than I am. He's a DJ, so I'm pretty. He got a whole lot more information of people that have been exploited.
Actually, that DJ thing was just a fad. It's something I went through, playing records. And actually, these records that are behind you are just a remnant of a certain time period. And the reason why I've been able to collect these records is because, as you recall, there was a time when CDs came in and records were kind of getting phased out. I just happened to be the beneficiary of having some insight to see that the album covers were probably just as important as the album. That's how they sold out marketing. You had to have a good album cover. People run out, they look at that album cover, ooh boy, that's gonna be a good record, and it's a James Brown record. You find out there's only one song on the record, on the album that's, any good, but the album cover sure looks good. And it's a piece of art, and so that's one thing, but I didn't want to get off the subject of generational wealth, because that's one of the talking points that we have on our board, on our talking point board, when you see the intro of the show. Generational wealth, what you see behind the EB is an indicator of a big chunk of wealth that black people have been robbed of. If you think about these artists who wrote these songs and performed these songs, they had children, they have grandchildren, they had parents at the time. They were robbed. I mean, through legal means, mind you, but, these executives never hit a key, never, stroked a guitar or anything.
Never did a split.
They never did anything, yet their kids benefit from this to this day. And we're going to go back, and I'm going to have EB grab one of the records. Just grab one. It doesn't matter. Just grab one, whichever one you, I knew you were going to grab that one. Here we go. Now, that's my man there, though. Yeah, bring him on in. Grover Washington. Grover Washington. And Grover Washington, it's Live at the Bayou. That's a great album. But, I mean, he just has a loaded catalog. And I would go out on a limb to say that the rights to Grover Washington's music, I would go out on a limb and say, I bet you he didn't have them. And I bet you his kids are probably struggling probably just as much as he probably did early on in his career. But that's what we call generational wealth getting passed down. Brother, I see you reading that. Flip it around as we can see. Now open it up. I want to show you people something that and black people know about this. And see that's artwork. That's a good photographer. Sorry about the glare, but records. It's called, and this is analog, by the way. Records are what is analog, and CDs were digital. So it's good that we're going to pull out a couple of records here. Just that one. What do you think about Grover Washington there, brother?
Well, like I said, this is the first jazz album that I ever owned, and it just goes to show is that we're talking about black middle class. You think about how these folks, being artists that they were, and how much that they brought to the music industry. And like Cal was saying, is that we just assume, Grover Washington kids might be set for life. But then again, we just use him as an example of all the ones that, if Grover Washington was taken care of, all the ones that was not taken care of, that left here without any rights, and then we look at, how a lot of our artists, they wrote on the backs of these people, as far as like the stance that those people took to make sure that the ones that after them didn't have to, we can go down the line of for talking about generational wealth as far as like how people have stepped out, like, a lot of, tell people age like Kurt Flood. He was a black guy in baseball, and he stood up to his contract, and he fought against it, and he was one of the first ones. I think I'm gonna go back and get more information on it, but he's one of the first ones that I think that disputed his contract.
So you made the transition to.
I'm still talking about generational wealth, though.
Yeah, but
yes.
no, that's fine.
Right.
Entertainment,
right.
because this does
yes.
go under the
right.
entertainment
right. exactly.
window. But
right.
that being said, don't get it twisted. We made a lot of advancements as black people through entertainers, unlike the entertainers today, who benefited from the sacrifice of the early entertainers, as you was talking about Ice Cube getting his. Not signing that contract, had the smarts to get a lawyer and so forth.
Right.
That entertainment category of black people really made a big difference in our struggle. They were not like well, you got a few athletes today. Let me take that back. I was getting ready to say the athletes of today are not active politically as the ones in the past were, where we made a lot of advancements. You got your Bill Russells, you got your Muhammad Ali, you got your, I even throw a name at me. I know you know, you got your Abdul-Jabbar in basketball. Track, you had Jesse Owens.
Damn, what's his name? I got his book at home. The guy went to the Olympics and raised the left hand.
John Carlos. John Carlos,
John
and
Carlos.
what was the other one's name? It was three of them, actually. And I'm glad you bought, it was, John Carlos wasn't the only one. I'll tell you that story.
I know it's two of them. I'm trying to think of who that other. I thought it wasn't but two.
Yeah, no, in fact, when we're talking about this, I'm going to go ahead and look it up because I feel embarrassed. And because they just had, one of them just had a birthday. And so, but that, I want to tell that story since you brought it up. And when I say there's three, because when you see the picture, there's two guys holding up their hand. And they have gloves on, right?
Right.
All right, that's the two black guys. There's a white guy standing there.
Right.
Doesn't have his, he's just sitting there all innocent, right? But do you know them two gloves that the two black guys, John Carlos, and the other one, those were his gloves? He gave them because they wanted to do something. And in some type of way, it just came out there where he had two gloves. You take my glove, you don't do. And I don't think they have shoes on.
No, they don't.
But in fact, but the white guy was from Australia, and he was demonized to the fullest for his participation in that protest. He was blackballed, everything. Yeah, and so he suffered just as much oppression after that moment as John Carlos and as his partner here. What's his partner's name? It's not coming to me. I'm gonna look it up here. But I just wanted to say that those are entertainers. They made impacts on America, and the entertainers of that day made some impacts. Tommy Smith, John Carlo and Tommy Smith, and since I'm looking at it, if you can go and expound on any athlete that made a difference, which there are plenty of them, and some of them, they're still living, and they're still out there. In the sports.
And we asked the question, why is it that a lot of, athletes, don't put their marketing capital on the line to speak on behalf of, black middle class. You know, because you remember a couple years ago, I think Laura Ingraham told LeBron James to shut up and dribble.
Yes.
You know, so that's the thing. They say, yeah, you can entertain us, but then again, you don't have no say in the things that goes on in this world. In other words, it's almost like you have the privilege of entertaining us. Just do that. Don't speak about anything.
And I just get this in real. Peter Norman. Peter Norman was the white guy.
Yeah.
And I feel embarrassed that I don't remember I do remember in real time the event. I probably was, well, let's say at that time I was probably three or 5 years old.
68.
Yeah, 68. Yeah. And so, but I think it's very important to recognize all three. And the reason why I say that is because sometimes we get caught on the two, and the one kind of pushed aside, unfortunately. But he was just as important, being a white guy, because that's what it really takes. Even in our struggle, it takes a team effort. You know, although black people on the front line getting hung and killed, they were white people too. You know, make the same sense. And that's where we get caught up sometimes. And you know, I hear this talk about generational wealth, and I always hear this talk about the Jews stole everything, and the Jews handled this, and Jews controlled this and that. Well, I'm kind of indifferent on that. First of all, it's just your opinion, and it's not based on fact, I don't think, unless you're going to count all the this and that and the things they do. Because for every time you do that, I'll say, well, there's the good people, good Jews, or if you want to say that like that. But because my opinion on the whole robbery or crime or whatever inhumanity that goes on, those are individuals. You know, and sometimes we come down to, I don't know, it's right or wrong. Do you know right or wrong? You know, so I don't know. You have a kind of like you just bursting to get your on that right there.
No, I'm saying you were speaking about good and bad what?
Well, in people. Okay. I'm glad you made that. It's all not on both sides though.
Hey, don't get canceled.
No. No.
Ain't that? But I'm saying, that's kind of sad though, man. I'm saying we laugh about it, but that's sad. You know that if a person voice their view, they stand the chance of being canceled based on who you put your views on.
Yeah, in today's world.
I'm saying, and so that's where we are in this world.
Yes.
You know
in
what I'm
America.
saying? And so well, you can say what you want, but then again, and the people say, yeah, you can say what you want. You got the right to say what you want, but then you got to stand and be prepared for whatever the repercussions are. Are you willing to deal with the consequences of you speaking your views? Michael Jordan never did it. He never spoke out on his views. Because matter of fact, give you an example. Craig Hodges asked the question, why don't he speak out? Guess what? Craig Hodges got cut. I'm just saying.
Yeah, and everybody, if you follow sports, you know exactly what that time frame was.
Right.
Yeah, and that goes into entertainers making a difference. I don't know if Craig Hodges was successful, but I'm glad you brought up Michael.
Successful in?
As far as what his goal was. What you tell me, since we talked, and this goes in line with
his goal was trying to get Michael Jordan to speak out by some indifference to things that's happened with black people. I forgot the actual subject.
I don't recall it like that. Yeah. I recall him bringing a letter to the White House. They had won the championship. He brought a letter with him, and all the letter did was just outline the problems of Black America in the inner cities. It was just to me, it's just an innocent letter. Golly, it's just he was bringing out the racism part, and you guys looks like the White House staff was like snowflakes, and they just so offended them that they blackballed the man, and so that's the way I remember it. And that goes into the entertainment. I know we started out with the records, but just we went up to the entertainment portion just as a whole, and taking a stance about doing the right thing. And I think as we wrap it up here, I think that's the main important thing that we always, as our elders always told us, always do the right thing. When you're going, my uncle told me one time, when you're doing right, you can't go wrong. And so, that's where we should always put our minds at, the truth, finding the truth. And sometimes the truth is not what we want it, what we think it should be, or what we want it to be, or what's in our minds. Some of us don't even really care about the truth. We just want to make our point. And so maybe in this show, we can develop, if anything, my goal is a way of effectively communicating and understand fact versus opinion. And not that your opinion is necessarily right or wrong. It's just an opinion. But you want to base it on facts.
Some facts in it.
Yeah, right.
Some facts should be intertwined in it that you can always revert back to the fact part of it that can make your point. But the other one, the opinion that is driven basically on your assumption or your views, that's when it starts becoming jaded. So like you said, based on facts.
Right. And so that's what I would say as we wrap it up. We probably going to change the format a little bit more. We're going to develop this a little bit more, show a little bit more. We just wanted to get some content out right now. Both our schedules, it doesn't kind of line up right now to do a show every week. We just do it as we can. And you guys can give us some thoughts or suggestions. I'm fine with that. It's no big deal. But I think Black Middle Class Talk is just designed that we can have our voices heard just in general. Because if you look at the headliners today, all the MSNBC is probably the only one that really hires blacks. In the end, they're stereotypes to me, but of what they're making, if you know what I mean. I shouldn't say it like that, but I think you get my point. But you got your CNN, we have the talking heads, and you got your The View. I kind of watch that show every now and then. Right. Same thing. We got particularly they're limited in what they opinion should be. Yeah, and so you're probably not getting the truth.
Because ABC is not going to allow them to say things that could cause them. Like I said, it all ties into me. It's the bottom line. The bottom line, it dictates how people react and how people make decisions. It's based on,
money.
It's just based there. At the end of the day, it's based on money at the bottom line. And as CC was saying, is that this is what my intention is for this segment of this show or this podcast or whatever you want to call it, for us to be able to just have that ability to communicate. Like I said earlier, is that our conversation are not tailored. I mean, not well polished or nothing. We just speaking our mind, just saying what it is. We say what we feel and how it is that we feel. Being respectful of everybody out there. And it's not our intent to be, mean, rude, or otherwise to anybody. And if it comes across that we do, hey, reach out and let us know, because like you say, we are open-minded. So hopefully you all will join us as we start on this journey. And I hope that you hitch onto the train and go down the track of Black Middle Class.
Right on, brother. Okay, that's pretty much it, man. Good run there. Now, see you the next time. See everybody next time. We'll have that number out pretty soon and have this system operating. Just kind of rough draft right now, but just feel good about being able to discuss these things. So you guys have a good week.
All right.
And always do the right thing.
Peace.